Snow White. Once upon a time, a forest kingdom was ruled by an evil queen. Every creature feared the terrifying queen, who was also secretly a powerful witch. However, the queen didn't care whether people liked her. She only cared about being the most beautiful woman in the land. Every day, she asked her magic mirror the same question: Who is the fairest one of all? And every day the mirror replied, You are the fairest one of all. This made the queen happy. The queen had a stepdaughter, Snow White, who was gentle, kind, and good. She was also extremely beautiful, and the queen worried that one day Snow White might become more beautiful than her. So the jealous queen made Snow White wear rags and work as her servant. All day Snow White worked hard, sweeping and scrubbing. Snow White was happy in her work. She sang, daydreamed, and had plenty of animal friends to talk to. Her greatest wish was for a charming prince to find her so that they could fall in love. One day, a handsome prince was passing by the royal castle and heard Snow White singing. He fell in love with her voice instantly. When he saw her, he fell in love with her beauty and grace as well. Snow White was surprised to see the prince. She was so ashamed of her ragged clothes that she ran away. However, when the prince sang to her, she stopped worrying about her clothes and just listened to his beautiful voice. Quite soon, she had fallen in love with him too. Unfortunately, the jealous queen had seen Snow White's meeting with the prince, and she wasn't happy. Worse still, that morning her magic mirror had confirmed her biggest fear. Snow White was now the fairest in the land, not her. The queen was furious and came up with a wicked plan to get rid of Snow White forever. She called for her trusted huntsman and ordered him to take Snow White deep into the forest and kill her. She demanded that he return to tell her when Snow White was gone. The huntsman watched as Snow White happily picked flowers and helped a poor little bird who was lost in the forest. He realized then that he couldn't bear to do any harm to this kind-hearted girl, so he told Snow White about the queen's evil plan and begged her to run away into the forest and hide. The huntsman returned to the castle and lied to the queen, telling her that he had carried out her order. Fortunately, the queen believed what he said was true and she was happy once again. Meanwhile, Snow White ran deep into the forest. It was dark and spooky, and soon she was lost and terrified. Trees looked like monsters and logs looked like alligators to poor Snow White. Eventually, she lay down in a clearing and wept. However, the next morning, the forest looked like a very different place. Snow White woke to find herself surrounded by the sweetest woodland creatures. There were birds, deer, rabbits, chipmunks, raccoons, and squirrels, and they all wanted to help her. The forest animal knew the perfect place for Snow White to hide. They led her to a tiny cottage where everything inside was small too, even the furniture. Snow White felt sure that children must live there. She found names carved into 7 little beds. Whoever lived there must be named Dog, Happy, Sneezy, Dumpy, Grumpy, Bashful, and Sleepy, and they were very messy indeed. Snow White set about cleaning, tidying, and washing the cottage. Soon it was spotless, and Snow White was so tired from all of her hard work that she fell asleep on one of the tiny beds. A little while later, the owners of the cottage returned home. Dog, Happy, Sneezy, Dopey, Grumpy, Bashful, and Sleepy were 7 dwarfs. They were shocked to see that their home had been transformed and feared that some kind of monster had done it. They soon discovered that the monster was a beautiful princess. Snow White explained her problem and offered to cook and clean for the dwarf if they hid her from the wicked queen. The dwarf agreed, especially when she offered to make them gooseberry pie. Only Grumpy wasn't too keen. He thought that Snow White was trouble. Snow White was happy living with the dwarf and believed that she was safe. However, when the wicked queen asked her magic mirror if she was the fairest of them all, it told her that Snow White was still the fairest. The queen was furious that she had been tricked. She looked in her spell books and made a potion to turn herself into an old peddler. She also created a poisoned red apple, and in disguise the queen set off to find Snow White. The queen found Snow White alone. She gave her the red apple and tricked her into eating it by promising that it would grant her wish. Snow White bit the apple, wished for her prince, and fell into a deep sleep. The dwarfs were heartbroken and built her a glass coffin in the forest. One day the prince, who had been searching for Snow White, found the coffin. He kissed her and she awoke. Love's first kiss was so powerful it broke the evil curse. Her greatest wish, she was so s- she